Okay, cool. So just kind of picking up where we left off last time, I want to talk about your history, Mogard, as an athlete. You get into some fantastic spiel before you went silent for 2 minutes. So let's just roll with that. And then, I want to talk about your coaching, what brought you to Brunei. We're obviously going to talk about the CrossFit Games experience. And then, I really want to talk about kind of your experience. You were talking about your kids being an important, like a really valuable resource for learning. I'd love to hear about that as well.
For sure.
Cool.
So where do I start?
Well, you've had some practice on your intro already, so we're just gonna hit that again, and you're just gonna get started. So let me introduce you.
All right.
Okay, team, welcome back to another episode on Zoom. As always, I am joined with my good friend, Mr. Mike Mogard, who is currently over in Brunei. I will be honest, this is take 2 of the podcast. Mike's connection was a bit shoddy on our first attempt, and apparently he's a man of excuses, as you'll find out in this episode. But apparently a submarine run into the Brunei internet line in the water. So anyway, we're giving this another crack. He's at his house. Mike, welcome.
Thanks for having me. True story too, by the way. Submarine truly did take out the internet.
Apparently a submarine is also the reason why Mike Mogard lost to me in the Open two years ago. But we'll say that. So Mike, I mean, what I know of you as a person is when I came into sport in 2014, you just represented Asia at the CrossFit Games in 2013. So you were the man in the sport. Very wise head on you. Looked like you've been doing it for years. And then as the times have rolled on, kind of I followed your coaching career. You've set up some affiliates in Brunei, and now you have some kids who are doing some pretty epic things, and you're kind of redefining how to kind of, I think, teach future generations of the sport. But let me hand this over to you. You could tell us a little bit about yourself and what brought you to where you are today.
Yeah, for sure. Let me just start from the beginning a little bit. I grew up in Iowa, in the USA. Iowa is kind of a farm, family, Midwest values, blue collar, just really good people. You get pulled over on the side of the road because of a flat tire or something. You got 50 people stopping to ask to help. So I kind of grew up in that vibe. Small town, 30,000 people. My father was a pretty successful bodybuilder, amateur, not pro, but kind of the best in the state. And so I grew up in the gym. I was around the gym ever since I can remember. He brought me to the YMCA. I watched him lift. We had chin-up bars and stuff in our basement, bench press. I was lifting fully by the age of 10, which at that time was still like not mainstream. So that's kind of how I got into the whole strength and conditioning sport fitness thing. Had some success in sports, was a really good wrestler actually, tore my ACL as a senior and decided to play baseball in college instead. And I was a decent baseball player, but I was always, in college especially, I was always better in the weight room than I was actually on the field. So I always had good relationships with my strength and conditioning coaches because I worked really hard, and I really liked the strength and conditioning aspect of it. So after graduating from college, I had some injuries in college again that I actually got hit in the face with a baseball as a freshman. So I actually had a really good freshman year of baseball. I got hit in the face and it shattered my whole right side of my face. So there's actually metal in my whole right side. I'm kind of like the Terminator, actually. There's titanium holding all this together right now. Didn't hurt my good looks any, but fortunate for the really skilled surgeons in Iowa City. So anyway, I had some things like that happen that I didn't really recover super well from and never kind of got the mojo back. So I had a really so-so college career in baseball. Got out, immediately pursued powerlifting, was working at the University of Iowa State in Ames, Iowa, doing some different things, doing some personal training, working for a health club over there. And through this powerlifting gym, I saw somebody running around. So it's called State Gym in Beyer Hall, I think. And I was squatting heavy, deadlifting heavy, 500 plus, was having some success in the powerlifting circles really early. And I just see this one guy always running around the gym doing laps, and then he'd stop in and do, jump up on his head and then rep out some handstand push-ups and then run again and then come back and do it again and then run again and come back and do it again. He was so dead tired. He was so out of breath, always just sweating everywhere, always like panting on the ground. And I thought it was the dumbest thing I'd ever seen in my entire life. I was like, this is so stupid. I'm way stronger than this guy. He's working way harder. He's tired all the time. I never am, but I could outlift him in every lift. Like, this is stupid, and what I'm doing is great. But that was my first exposure. That was my first exposure to CrossFit.
And what year was that?
That would have been 2007. I started doing the powerlifting thing in 2006, 7, and got first exposed to this guy doing CrossFit in that gym.
Okay, so that's early days of CrossFit.
That's early days for sure. And I got online and I searched out the methodology. And the thing is, I hated watching him do it, but I really liked the methodology behind it. And I could quickly see their definition of fitness and how they were kind of measuring things. I'm like, there's really something to this. So I started using it with like my clients because I saw the methodology, but also it was just a way more fun way to run a session. So PT, especially back then, I think it's evolved quite a bit for a lot of us, but back then, sometimes it was a little bit confusing on how to add value in that hour. And the CrossFit methodology made it super simple to do so. And so I started using it, started working, people started enjoying it, people started having success. And so it was that couple-year process of doing it with my clients that kind of sucked me in, was like, man, I need to try this. That, in addition to powerlifting, it beat me up. I was really good at it, but I didn't progress slowly. And I kind of can go to this place mentally where I can really do well for a couple reps. And that allowed me to have a lot of success early, but it beat up my body. I needed to go way slower in the process if I was going to have that be a long-term thing. So the combination of getting beat up through powerlifting, seeing this work with clients, kind of brought me to a place where I want to try CrossFit for myself. And that would have brought me to like 2010.
Yeah, I'm interested to hear. So you saw this guy running around doing laps, handstand push-ups. You're like, this is ridiculous. And then you read up on it online, and you thought you actually kind of liked the methodology. What was it about the methodology that you liked?
It was just that they defined fitness in measurable terms. So the fact that they said, hey, here's what work capacity is, here's how you get more of it, that you could go to the gym for 6 months and then objectively measure, am I fitter or not by this standard? That was for sure, and still is today, the thing that I'm most drawn to the CrossFit methodology through. I actually have a lot of quite opposite, I don't know about opposite, but maybe contrarian views to a lot of things, maybe in the level one, but that is one that, and even the way they actually choose to measure, we could probably have a good conversation about that another time. But the fact that they made an effort to measure it was absolutely the thing that sucked me in.
Yeah, you're right. I think 2007 to 2010, like the definitions of what personal training should be prescribing to clients was just all over the shop. I still remember doing NASM, which was like the global certification, which was like, this is the gold standard for personal training. And I finished it and I was like, I have no idea where to start. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm just going to use this template and, get some balancing drills in there, get some core drills in there, and then we're good to go. And probably like you found, just wasn't getting the results that the book had promised I would be achieving.
Absolutely. And I can still remember, okay, we start with, it was like the free motion machine where you're doing rows. And then it's like, basically it was calling you to move to a more unstable environment. And everything became less stable. So in quote unquote, it became harder. But then I knew intuitively, but the intensity is dropping because you're going slower and you're doing less weight because you're making it more unstable. And then CrossFit came along and said, kind of flipped that reverse and said, no, the goal is, greater intensity and not less. So they were really going less intensity, more for the instability. And that NASM principle, their little hierarchy, that's actually what probably drew me the most across it, because it basically stood in opposition to it.
Interesting. Okay, what about your own journey? You started trying CrossFit now because you're trying it with your clients. Where did your own journey in 2010 kind of take you?
like as soon, because I'd been watching from afar. So as soon as I was like, I want to try this, I actually just jumped into my level 1. So that was like the first time I did Fran. I'm the classic guy who like shows up not really understanding what the whole culture is about, but understood the methodology. Did Fran my first time. I think I did, like, I heard that you had to do it, so I like practiced like the week before or something. You know, I think it was mostly strict pull-ups or whatever. But I think I did it in like 5 minutes. I literally had no idea what happened the rest of the day. I was just a zombie the rest
Yeah.
of the day. Just a classic experience. So I took my level 1. It definitely motivated me. I'm like, wow, this is a whole community. This thing's way bigger than I really thought it was. Because I searched online, but you don't get the feel of how, you know, the bigness of the whole deal until you kind of show up at level 1. And then I got real excited. So I was like, I'm going to open a gym. And there wasn't a CrossFit box in our town that I was living in at the time. But I was real nervous about the process of, I knew nothing about business. I had nothing about entrepreneurship. I was an athlete my whole life, health and sports study major. I was actually a pre-dental biology, physiology major in college, which it seems like there'd be carryover, but there wasn't at all. So I didn't want to take out a big loan, but I did want to start a gym. So I wasn't sure what to do. So I was actually on vacation in the Philippines. It was kind of a vacation / service project with a buddy of mine. And we had a friend of a friend, kind of an acquaintance, who's living in Brunei. He said, hey, come over, you know, just Cebu Pacific flight, $30. Come for an adventure. Borneo's crazy, like untapped rainforest. Come explore for 5 days, free place to stay. We're like, cool. So came here, visited, wanted to get workouts in, went to the health club here, met a guy who was like, hey, I want to start a CrossFit. There's not one here yet. This would have been late 2010, I think. And he was like, I want to start a CrossFit. I've heard about it. I don't know. I have no idea. Don't have a trainer. I've got capital. If you would agree to come here and do this, I've got equity just for a contract for you. And I was like, shoot. So the contrasting this situation of no investment plus equity versus huge risk over here. My wife and I had always been, you know, keen on taking an adventure where we've always traveled a lot. And so kind of we just took the plunge and said, let's do it. What's the worst that could happen? 2 years and we have equity, and let's give it a shot. And then, as most people's story over here, you know, who are still here, they ended up liking it and found a happy lifestyle and a different pace. And here we are.
Wow, I didn't read it. I mean, 2010 for somewhere like Brunei, you know, being a small Asian country, is like, that's early days for, you know, people there to be thinking about CrossFit as an affiliate. Because 2010 is, you know, that's when we started, and CrossFit really wasn't a conversation that was in like the nomenclature of the training world. Yeah,
you know, this guy, he's on it. Like he's always kind of wanting to do the next hot thing for sure. And so he knew about it. He was on it. He was watching. The funniest part about it is, well, it was in 2010. So then we came early 2012, like, let's do this. And one had started in that time, basically. So that was interesting. And that's a whole nother story. But yeah, for some reason, the country of Brunei, it took the CrossFit early and often.
Okay, so there's two avenues that we have to explore here. One is you making it to the CrossFit Games via the Asian Regionals, which was the format to get in the games back in the day. And two is where your business is now. So why don't we let's start with your business. So like, what did you do? You came over, you created an affiliate. Now where are you?
Yeah, so the first thing I did actually, with this contract, or this situation I had with this investor, it kind of quickly I became more passionate about CrossFit each and every day. And I felt like he became a little less so. So I started to lose a little bit of faith in that relationship. In that time, I went to regionals. I qualified. So I did the Open early 2012. I just arrived in Brunei, like February it started. And so I had about a month to figure out how to do the Open, because I'd never done it before and didn't have really an experience. So the first workout was the 7-minute burpee workout. I've got this ghetto set up with like a box hanging from the ceiling, you know, like where to create the target above me, because I couldn't get it just right. And so qualified for regionals, ended up getting fourth without knowing how to do a proper toes to bar. Like I had a lot of success early because I had a good strength training background. And that year was super heavy, 225 hang clean, snatch ladder, 100-pound dumbbell. So
that was a row hang power clean pistol one.
Yeah, that's still nasty. I mean, that thing is still just terrible.
Yeah, that's a horrendous workout.
But I think I won the snatch ladder with a 225 snatch back then. That was a good one.
Hey, mate, that's still a good one, right?
Yeah. Well, so that I met all the Reebok guys. I made a lot of friends through that experience in 2012. And so what happened was they had those Reebok Dropbox containers there, those cool red
ones,
CrossFit containers that were all kitted out on the inside, welded out, kind of held an affiliate. This place does really well with open air. So I was like, man, that might be really cool way to go here in Brunei. So I got on the phone and kind of bugged Reebok for like 3 straight months to kind of support what I'm doing over here and be one of the first to have an affiliate over here in this kind of part of the world and all the rest. And through bothering them, we kind of made a deal that gave me the confidence to kind of break away from that prior engagement. So I actually broke off from that other one because I started lacking trust, but I was like, man, this is really cool. Regionals was awesome. I want to do this. I want to partner with Reebok. And so they found a way to get us one of those big red containers. And it's a funny story. It's actually worth telling, I guess. But there happened to be one of those big red containers sitting in Japan. And in Japan, they weren't supposed to open it. They were supposed to open one. They had like 3, and they're supposed to open 1 for demo and keep 2 new to sell. Well, they opened all 3, left some stuff out in the rain, did things they weren't supposed to. And so then they had these 3 Reebok containers full of 50 grand of Rogue equipment that they could not sell at full price because they had gotten rained on and there was a little bit of rust and stuff. And so we ended up getting one of those containers at a massive discount and delivered that thing. And that's how we started our gym. So pretty unbelievable.
I think I remember seeing photos. You had that red box for a while, right?
We still got it, man. It is. We use it every day. It's amazing. Yeah, we have those photos of craning it off, into our gym in the jungle.
Because I always just thought those red boxes were just like a marketing ploy that Reebok were using to promote because the Delta had just come out, I think. Yeah. And I had no idea you could actually purchase a box and bring it over. That's epic.
Yeah, they had the big helicopter dropping like that promo video or whatever. But no, it's a real thing, and they're really sweet on the inside. Like everything kind of fits. They've got like places for the bars, wall ball racks. Like everything's got its little spot. It's all, and then there's lights on the inside, and it's got electricity running through it. Like it was meant to be a mobile gym. So it's really cool.
So that was your first affiliate?
Yeah. So, but we did a building though. Like we didn't do it outside, but we parked this big box outside of our gym. It's cool marketing, and then we took all the stuff and just kitted out a 1,200 square foot space.
Okay, and so you have more than one location now, I believe, right?
Yeah, we have 3 here, and then we have another. It's not the same brand, but we have another location in Ames, Iowa called State 35 CrossFit.
And what's your goal now? What's your goal over in Brunei with where you're taking CrossFit, and maybe how's it also evolved over the years?
Yeah, so it's amazing. Brunei as a country has evolved a lot, and we've been a part of it. Some of it I think is due to our presence here, but then also just the country's evolving towards health and fitness anyway. The leadership of the country and the Sultan of Brunei has always been pro fitness, pro health. There's no duty or tax on import of fitness goods and stuff like that. So that's been a big advantage and help for us that way. But Brunei as a whole has been more active, but not real competitive. And so we kind of brought that piece to it because we actually started our gym with a competition. So very unconventional, but so it would have been October 2012. This Dropbox shows up in like September, and we have not opened yet officially. I decided, because I had friends from the regionals in 2012, to invite people from Malaysia, Philippines over for a throwdown as a kickoff to us opening our gym. So that was the beginning of the Beast of the Southeast competition, was before we even opened our doors. So Tanner Shuck was over here from Manila and brought his crew. Joe Bui from Manila came over, and then the Pushmore CrossFit guys from Malaysia. Real throwback stuff. But that's how we kicked off with competition. So we really brought that vibe to Brunei. So we started doing competitions right away, and then a lot of other people followed suit. And this country isn't geared towards competition at all, because there's really not that much sport competition in the country, has been very competitive in CrossFit, especially per capita, way more competitive than a lot of places.
And is there other CrossFit gyms now that have opened up in Brunei?
Yeah, there's one other CrossFit gym that started right before we did. That's the one I was talking about. It's called Get Fit CrossFit. And they've been in the game since the beginning. And then there's another gym that's not affiliated as a CrossFit, but they have some good athletes. And they have both of the athletes who qualified for the CrossFit as national champions.
Awesome. All right, Mike, let's talk about CrossFit Games.
Let's do it.
So you qualified by winning the Asian Regional in 2013.
Yes.
Tanner was in that as well. What was the top three? What was the podium that year?
Tanner was up there, and I think a guy named Cameron Curry was up there, I believe. I think Justin Aarons got fourth, who, I don't know if you remember him, but he
still speak to him.
Tree line guy. I think after that point, he just kept getting better and better. And now I think he's the best out of all of us by far. So Tanner might take offense, but
Tanner can blame his injuries. You have no excuses. No, I'm still in contact with Justin. I actually spoke to him just the other day. But okay, so that's actually a pretty strong field. I remember the Asian Regional back then. My first year was 2014. That's when I first started to really kind of have interest in the sport. But certainly the final heat was always pretty close. I think there was probably like 5 or 6 guys that were always kind of vying for the podium spots, and then probably a bit of a drop off for the next, and then a pretty large drop off for the rest of the crowd. So, okay, so that year, did you go into that regionals with the intention of winning and going to the games?
I had no idea what I was doing. Like, no clue. I knew just because of the leaderboard and how well I'd done in the Open the last 2 years that it was realistic, but I did not know what I was getting myself. Into. And I don't remember. I won fairly easily, I think, because I just remember the last workout was a rope climb, heavy clean workout. It's like 2 rope climbs, 4 cleans, and I remember thinking, I don't have to do anything spectacular here to keep this. And so I kind of went slow. Wasn't that fun to watch probably, but I was just like, well, I'm gonna stay healthy and here we go. So it was. I can't say I was surprised to win, because you couldn't be, but I was not ready for that next level. I'll tell you that much.
Okay, so the next level is, of course, the 2013 CrossFit Games, when it was still in LA. Talk me through that experience.
So I didn't know what I was doing. So I was somehow connected to Outlaw CrossFit, and I don't remember how. I can't remember what that connection was. I think I posted a big lift or something, and he commented, and the guy was named Rudy Nielsen. And so he was plugged in with like Chad McKay, Dan Tominski, Brandon Swan, some guys that I knew of. And so getting ready for that, I was like, well, these guys seem to know what they're doing. And back then, Rudy was kind of putting out some more of the cutting edge stuff, that just in terms of how to think about the sport and how to get ready for it. And it was pretty good. He's a strange guy, but I didn't have any problem with that. I was just interested in his vibe. So I started following his stuff online. Well, the volume was like 10 times too much. Like I was working out one time a day, following my own program. I was not doing multiple training sessions a day at all. And so I started trying to keep up, just because I was basically insecure that I was going to go there and just get embarrassed. And we were doing a workout with double kettlebell thrusters at 32 kilos with 32 kilo double kettlebells, which I don't even know. I think that'd still be hard, but it was really hard for me back then. And I got real frustrated one day, and I actually remember I was by myself. I remember throwing a plyo box across the room because my times were so much worse. Tominski in that thing always killed everybody. And I just remember thinking, how can I be like 4 or 5 minutes off these guys? Like, this is crazy. And so I got real frustrated. And then one time I dropped these kettlebells and I set them down and the handles came together and it absolutely smashed my finger. And I ended up in the ER. It's like a month out. I ended up in the ER with a completely shattered finger. And my training up to the games from that point was a nightmare. Tanner Shutt came to visit like the next week, and we're rowing. And I we were trying to do stuff and try to work around it, but like I remember rowing with one hand because I could not even grip a handle. So that I was already going to be not prepared. That made it worse.
I remember the outlaw way was like the thing that everyone was
outlaw way. Yeah, that's what it's called.
That's it.
Yeah.
And I remember because I was quite new into the sport, and so I was kind of looking around at what everyone was doing. I always just associated the outlaw way with being like really heavy, like way too heavy for what I can handle. So I gravitated towards James Fitzgerald and the OPT blog because that seemed, in my eyes, to be a little bit more well thought out. It didn't bias really heavy stuff, but still, the leaderboard stuff was almost. I mean, looking back, it's actually quite cool. Like it was Marcus Philly, Danny Nichols, and those games athletes were like Amanda Goodman. They were the big dogs guys who were all in the OPT program. So that's who I would look at my scores. And we would compare our scores to. I would just not even give any. I wouldn't give a second of my time to the outlaw guy because it was just way beyond anything I could do. But it is interesting seeing. I remember just like thinking back in the day and where the best athletes were gravitating towards. All right. So okay, right. So you smash your finger 1 month out. Then what?
Yeah, man. And so the problem there was the first workout. Well, I'm a bad swimmer, first of all, and the first workout was the bar muscle up swim. Well, I couldn't even hang on to a bar a week out. So I really did ask myself, I don't think this is worth it. Like, if you can't even hang on a bar on the first workout, like, what are you even going to do? You know? But it's kind of one of those things where it did happen a month out. So it was bad for the first 3 weeks, but that healing process really ramps up kind of 4 to 6. And so when I got there, I was able to do it by taping some stuff together and blah, blah, blah. But I was pretty freaking out about trying to do, and those bars were wet. They're like taping them in between heats with like rock tape. It was such a circus.
Yeah, I remember.
On top of not being able to swim, that was a rough way to start. So then I really got kicked in the freaking face when there was that half marathon row. And I hadn't rowed. And I was rowing with one hand. So again, I'm not saying that if I wouldn't have broken my finger, it would have been any different, but it just kind of added fuel to the fire of uncertainty of the whole thing. And so I'd never rowed more than a 2K in my life. And so and that's exactly what I'm talking about. I had no clue that something like that could happen. I was just not ready. I was not ready for that type of competition.
And had you watched previous games before that? Had you tried to build a bit of a picture or an idea of what you were coming into, or were you just like, I'm just going to go and back my fitness and see how it goes?
I mean, I definitely tried, but that was where I kind of just trusted the outlaw kind of system in the beginning and was like, let's just do this. I mean, of course I watched all the old ones and kind of tried to get an idea. You get so overwhelmed because you don't, once you qualify, you only have back then it was like a couple months, so you didn't have much time anyway. So it just seemed better for me to kind of focus on what I could do, in a short amount of time. And then that just meant kind of sticking to somebody else's plan. But again, in order to be ready for something like that, that preparation starts years in advance, not months. So, yeah.
Okay. So,
but, I mean, it was definitely one of those situations where I was a bit of a fan, to be honest. And I was really okay with that, sitting on the bus next to, I always kind of made to choose my seat on the bus to have some fun, So I sat next to Panchik, I sat next to Bailey, I sat next to Ben Smith. You know what I mean? Just to be like, well, I'm here, so let me take advantage of it. And everybody was really loose, before everything started. And then once we got on that bus to go to the pool, it was dead silent. The bus was crickets. I was like, oh, okay. They're all kind of jokesters when it's not game time, but then it got real quick. So that was kind of interesting.
Okay, so you had the swim event, you had the half marathon row. What was next?
So I think we had a day off after that because that back then was a big deal, the half marathon. So I think they gave us a day off, which was even worse because it kind of allowed like DOMS to set in basically. And I got so sore after that event. And so I think we got a day off, and then I think we kicked off with the burden run, which was a nightmare because that pig, I couldn't get my finger under that thing to flip it because I broke that finger. So I had a really hard time moving that big, you know what the pig is, right?
The big kind of metal thing you had to flip over, yeah.
So that was the worst. Once you get done with that run, you got to the pig that I couldn't flip. Once I finished the pig that I couldn't flip, I got to the big log that I couldn't carry. Once I finished carrying the log I couldn't carry, I had the sled that I couldn't move. It's the worst. Everybody like loves the CrossFit environment where everybody like people finish 5 minutes ahead and they go back and cheer on that guy.
Yeah.
I hate that. I hate that so much. So if I don't do that in the competition to somebody, it's not because I don't like you. It's because I don't like it to be done to me. Yeah. So you had Josh Bridges there, like, come on, like trying to help me with technique and stuff. I'm like, dude, I'm dead. I'm sore. It's not moving. Like, it's all right.
I'm having a good time.
Stuck at the end of that stupid thing, and it's a sweet event, but I just got owned, And it's a couple of things that year. If you look at the leaderboard, apart from really, really talented guys, you saw the little guys. I was like 178 pounds. So like you see the smaller guys just get crushed by stuff like that.
Yeah. Who was it? What was the podium that year? That was Froning won that year?
2012.
Bridges was on the podium, yeah?
No, I don't think so because he was super. Funny story on that year. I was like in the tent getting treatment, and that was like during the Cinco workout or something. It was like 405 deadlifts, and he couldn't lift it. He threw a fit in the training room, like chucked his I don't know if it was grips or water bottle or something, because I don't think he was like complaining about it per se, but he was really frustrated he couldn't get 405 off the ground.
Okay, right. So where are we at we had the pig flipping event, and then where are we next?
So yeah, that's the zigzag sprint was next. So
tell us what happened.
Yeah, the infamous. My claim to fame. I'm pretty convinced that if I even finish the games, I don't get as much attention as I did in that single event. So,
I agree. That was when I think of Mike Mogard back in the day. All I think about is that event. But please talk us through it.
For sure. So I remember warming up and surprised. I think I was just excited for the event. I was excited to do well at something. And so even though I was pretty wrecked from the burden run in the row, I was like, all right, cool. So I started warming up and I felt like real springy. I was like, all right, this is going to be good. So just made sure I had my head straight, warmed up as good as I could. And then lined up, for the first event. They just called you out one at a time. It took forever to kind of get it all organized. And we weren't the first heat by any means. So you're kind of waiting around a lot. So it's a little bit tricky to stay loose and stay ready. And it was pretty hot out too. So, there's some challenges that way, but get out there feeling good. And in my head, I remember thinking like, you're faster than these guys. So just like stay within yourself, and I didn't. I mean, the 3, 2, 1, go or whatever, stand by, beep on the horn, I think is how they did it. And I just took off and felt really good. Cone, or the pylon, cut, took off about 4 steps in and immediately just felt my hamstring pop. And it wasn't like a little tweak. It was like, that's it. And I knew right away. In my head, I thought, that's it. And so I kept running, finished. I don't even remember where I got, 3rd probably in that heat or something. And I remember thinking, I've done this before. I know how it feels. It's definitely over. And so I was pretty cerebral about it, or sober about it. Cause I was like, whatever, I had a good experience. This is going to be it. I wasn't ready for it anyway. So, learn your lesson and move on. And so I went up to Castro and was like, I just pulled my hamstring and I'm out. So I'm going to drop out. And he's like, well, don't do that, because if you do, then you're done for sure for the whole competition. And I was like, well, yeah, that's probably, that's a bummer, but I probably am, because, you know, he's like, well, just to make sure, just go walk the next one. Just, you know, who knows what happens, or you end up, it wasn't as bad as you thought, or it's a cramp and not a pull or something. So just go walk the next one, and then you can at least be eligible for the next event. And I was like, all right, fine. So I didn't really think about his suggestion. I was just like, okay, I'll do that. And so then, you know, you line up for the next one, and then you think about the prospect of walking in front of all these people, and you're like, I can't walk. So then you're like, all right, I'll jog it like decent. But then I was thinking, you know, if I jog it decent, I'll be like hobbling along. That's even like more awkward. So I'm like, what do I do here? And so it was like 30 seconds to run, and I'm having this conversation with myself. I'm like, who cares? I'm just going to run. And so I ran, and I was like, oh, I got through the pylons, and I was like, you know what? It's not so bad. Like, I don't know if it's adrenaline or what, but like, this isn't so bad. So then I turn it on to try to like win the heat or whatever, to try to like do well. And I pulled the other one because I mean, I'm sure I was just intuitively trying to use all that other side to get myself through it. And I felt the other one go. It wasn't as bad as the first one. I mean, I don't think this is like, you're done, but I was like, so I got one bad pull and one like definitely tweaked. And I believe on that one, I was like, I can't stop, because if I stop, I'm going to snap it in two. So I like dove, like did a headfirst slide in order to stop myself instead of like trying to put on the brakes. So then I was like, well, now what do I do? So then I was like, I think Bosman came up to me after that and was like, are you okay? And I'm like, nope. And I'm like, I'm definitely done. But I was like, well, I don't know. Now I've kind of got myself into this mess, because I got into the next, you know, I looked up at the big screen or whatever and got through. And I was like, okay, here we go. So the physio guy came over and like just wrapped them like real tight with a bunch of bandages and stuff. And at that point, I didn't ask myself the question anymore. I was like, now I have to finish it. So got up there, lined up again, both legs fully, you know, taped and wrapped, can't really feel much, and somehow got through to the next. And I don't think my time was that good, but I just happened to be in like the heat that I needed to be in, or people were tired or something. But it was a decently slow time, but somehow I ran that thing and still got through. Did the head first slide again because I couldn't stop, and found myself in the finals of this event, you know? So I think once the finals rolled around, I ended up beating somebody. I don't remember who it was. It might've been Ben Smith. Whoever got. So I ended up getting 5th out of 6 in that last heat. Beat somebody decent. I think Casper Bauer and Panchik won it or something. But yeah, so, you know, and then after that, I was a mess. So anyway, I go after that, you know, feeling pretty good about getting 5th, but no, I'm dead for the weekend. And then the next event was the legless rope climb thruster. And so they had the stadium. There was all these individual ropes hanging from the ground, and that one I just did 21 thrusters, barely, 1 legless. I could have done that workout, except I couldn't come down from the rope. Like, to drop off the rope, I felt like it was gonna like snap in two. So I was like, I just can't do it. So I did 1 rope climb to stay eligible for the next day. Went to bed that night, prayed for a miracle, woke up, tried to do 95-pound overhead squats to get ready for Naughty Nancy, which was like 25 at 140, I think, something like that. And I couldn't even do a 95-pound overhead squat. And so I was like, yeah, that's it. So that's the story.
And then, so how did you live with that news to Mr. Castro?
Same way. I was like, yep, it's for real now. Like, I'm out. And he's like, I mean, he, you know enough about Dave Castro to know that he said three, I don't know if he uttered a word. It was like, yeah, okay. You know, like, let this guy know. All right. And so I let somebody else then know, and then officially withdrew or whatever. Somebody found me in the physio tent, handed me like a medal or something, like a participation medal. Like, oh, thanks so much. You know? And that was the end of it. So I missed out on Naughty Nancy, which actually should have been a good one for me. Missed out on the clean and jerk. And then I don't think most people made it to Cinco. You had to make the cut to make it to Cinco. So I think Naughty Nancy, missed out on the leg list because I just did a half bit. Missed out on Naughty Nancy, missed out on the clean jerk. And I think that was about it. So at that point they're cutting. So definitely still got a full experience, but I got real sick after that. I think just that whole mess just took the toll on me, and I got sick for like a week, just trying to recover from that mess. So,
I mean, I know I love taking the piss out of your CrossFit Games experience, but it is still very noble that you got there and still fought and competed. I'm pretty sure if you type in Mike Mogard's zigzag event, there's like some epic slow motion compilations where people have put like music into you like head diving at the end. I might have just made that up completely, and if that doesn't exist, then I'm going to go and make my own compilation.
Yeah, I actually made our members go back and remember it for me so they could know about it, because I gave away a gift card to somebody who could tell me what the time was that I had to get through to the finals in the zigzag sprint. So then
You back there, buddy?
I got so excited that I knocked over my phone.
All good.
Yeah, so that's the story.
Okay, so when you finished that CrossFit Games experience, like, because you still competed for quite a few years after that. You know, you kept on going back to regionals. You obviously did the Asian regionals next year, didn't quite make it. I think Phil Hesketh went that year. You still did 2 or 3 years at Pacific Regionals?
Yeah, I mean, that next year is worth a 30-second discussion, because I didn't have a great day one, and Sean Woodland got on the update show after Friday, and Nico Rompa was in our region that year, and he was normally in Europe, and this year he was in Asia. So everybody, and he had a big name, and everybody's like, oh, it's and so Sean Woodland was like, no surprise here, Nico Rompa went after day one. Basically impossible for anybody to, Mogard, last year's qualifier, has basically no chance to take over a Rompa, in the last 2 days or something like that. And then I went out and had a great day too, and had like a 7-point lead or something like that, which 7 points with that field was basically having it wrapped up. And then I went into the last day, Sunday, with a 7-point lead and totally epically failed on this 50s chipper.
Yeah, the row box jump, wall ball, ring dip.
For sure. It wasn't a great WOD anyway for me, but I got stuck on those ring dips, which is crazy because I'm good at them. And what happened was I got out of my head, and I started doing strict ring dips instead of kipping. And it was I just wasn't thinking. And I remember Candace Ford, who's an old Asia Regionals female competitor who's now in Dubai and owns her own business, had a lot of success out there. I remember her yelling from the crowd, "Why are you not kipping?" I was like, oh my gosh, I did the first 25 of these without kipping. And it just happened to be enough to I just got stuck. I got stuck on singles. I kind of freaked out and ended up losing to Phil Hesketh and Carmody by like a rep or like a point or two or something. We were all like within a point or two.
Yeah, I remember it was a super, super close year that year. And then, but was the goal for you to get back to the games?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely, I was better shape at that time. I think I could have done better. I was a lot stronger actually than I was in 2013. At that point, I think that was when I hit like a 300-pound snatch from the blocks, and was clicking pretty good. And so I definitely hadn't addressed like my, above 5-minute weakness. Anything longer than 5 minutes, I still sucked at. But I think I could have done pretty good in the strength events if I just could have gotten there, and it would have been a decent year. So I was definitely trying to get back. I still can't say I was well prepared, but that one stuck. Like in 2013, I was like, man, that whatever. But in 2014, I wanted it and I didn't get it, and that stunk. That hurt.
And then you still cracked on. I think your family was growing. You probably had. I'm pretty sure you had 3 kids at this point. Maybe actually all 4. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're still like making the trip out to Oz every year because we were always down there, and like I'd always reach out to you and see if you were going. You'd always say, "Yeah, I'm gonna go again," and you kind of make a fairly lonely trip out to Oz when the whole regional format changed. But you stuck with that for like 2 to 3 years. So like I'm just curious to hear what your what the goals and ambitions were and what was motivating you to still kind of be out there hanging with the big boys?
Yeah, I think family. You know, in 2014, my youngest son Zion, got really sick when he was 6 months old, and so he almost died. Like, he was in the ambulance. He flatlined. He had a nasty bout with meningitis. Turned blue, wasn't breathing, everything turned off, and then doctors were able to get him back. And that was like really that was really tough on me, and I think it was tough on our whole family. But you know, anytime something like that happens, it just brings about a different perspective, you know. And so I think at that point, you know, I still like to compete. That's still a part of who I was. It wasn't like, oh, and now I realize what's really important. Not at all. It was just I had lost a little bit of motivation from competing, because that was a really stressful time of life, and I needed to devote myself a little more to my family during that time. But then after that, competing just became a thing that I did, I think, to basically set an example for my family. So we were all into it. I wanted to show them what hard work looked like. I wanted to stay in it. I thought it was good for our gyms. I thought it was good for kind of just marketing purposes, and just having a coach that takes it seriously and having everybody kind of join in that process. I felt like it was something that brought together our community a little bit. So it just, the motivation after that for the regionals, 15, 16, what would that have been? Yeah, 15, 16, 17, I think. 17, was more of a community thing, and our community kind of got behind me and followed, and it was just it was a fun thing that way.
Okay, well, let's finish this off, Mike, because you just started talking about your family and your kids there. So for anyone that follows you on Instagram, they probably stumbled across the better Mogard, which is your son, who's far more talented than you, and obviously takes all your wife's genes. So tell us about, but it's not just him, because I think, you know, all your kids are talented. I mean, personally, looking from the outside looking in, like, they love the gym. They've like developed this really unique love and passion for health and exercise and fitness. It looks like you just can't stop them working out. They're just working out all day, every day. And like, they move great. It's not like they're just in the gym doing sloppy things and it's a danger hazard. Like, it's actually really good stuff. And I think personally, for someone who's worked with a lot of youth as well in strength and conditioning, and I've obviously been faced with the questions many a time by, you know, like, are you starting him too young? Are there going to be repercussions from weight training? And, you know, I have my own stories that I say, you know, to counter that, in terms of why I think it actually is really important to cultivate fantastic movement patterns at such a young age and actually start loading the body. But what's been your experience, you know, having brought up 4 kids in a gym, I guess kind of like yourself? Now I'm hearing your story. And, you know, what have you done and what are you learning from them?
Man, this is this is my favorite topic for sure. I mean, I've learned so much. The first one is I was really surprised what a great environment the gym was to bring up a family from a parenting standpoint. And, you know, just growing up on the sports field, I obviously know that there's a lot of character building things and, you know, from that, but specifically the gym, and specifically CrossFit style workouts have been fantastic, because they teach you, you know, when you let your kids program them, they've got to think critically about why they're doing it and how they're going to execute it. They got to put it together. They got to plan for it. Then the idea of doing it, they're going to get fitter. They've got to work hard. There's usually a point where you feel like you're going to quit. Lots of tears have been shed in the Mogard gym from something getting hard, and then feeling like they want to keep, you know, pushing. And we're just not, you know, one thing we always tell our kids is we're not afraid of hard. So where most parents might be like, you know, back off because their kid is, you know, on the verge of tears, we're not in their ear yelling, but we're definitely willing to let them go through that process and not rescue them from it. And it's done a lot of the parenting for us, because they're learning all those lessons by us placing them in that environment, and that's been super cool.
And I mean, recently, I think 2 of your kids, you were back in America, and they did a weightlifting comp and did really well. And I mean, certainly like Jaimon, who has, I think you're managing his profile, aren't you?
Yeah.
I just thought Jaimon was such an articulate young kid. I was like, how's he so Instagram savvy at such a young age?
But I mean, of it's him though. I've handed a lot of it over to him actually.
I mean, I don't doubt that, but I mean, Jaimon is putting, he's doing some incredible things all the time. He's lifting some really impressive weight for his size, and so is your daughter. I think is it Miah?
Yeah, Miah. Yep.
Miah, yeah. And then like, what are they doing now? Tell me about like, okay, so you've got parenting lessons that the gym has really complimented you on, and like their journey now to being where they are. What's that look like?
It's really interesting. Jaimon from a young age knew exactly what he wanted. He had a crazy self-awareness, crazy focus. Age 5, he was in the gym every day. He'd beg to go to the gym every day. The absolute worst thing in the world is to not take him to the gym. He would be upset about it, for 24 hours until he got to go back the next day. My daughter wasn't like that at all. So it's been very interesting to kind of watch their different journeys. But at some point, he stayed with it, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then she saw that, had a little bit of competitiveness with her as well. And then she kind of got on board there. So I guess the first thing is they're just really different in how they've gotten to where they've gotten. But now they're clicking right together. They play off each other. They train together. They program together. They basically follow the same template, even though they've got different levels of talent. They are, they're great workout partners. Honestly, like when you watch like a Matt and Tia kind of do their thing together, it's got that type of synergy to it in terms of just how they get along with each other. So Jaimon's always, ever since he's been, 3 years old and watched, me on the, YouTube or watched me on the regionals live stream or whatever, has known what he's wanted, which is to compete in this sport. And so every day our routine is they get up in the morning. We let them sleep because we do homeschool. So we let them sleep because we're just really, really big believers in, or we had great experience with just allowing our kids to rest as much as they need. And then he's usually out at our home rig doing something in the morning. We have like a platform or a rig out there. So he usually wakes up, does something out there active, eats breakfast, then does homeschool, then typically goes out there again for like a recess or a break time, some other sort of weightlifting thing, all on his own programming. And then, and this would be with Miah too. And then at 2:00, it's gym time. So they usually rock up to the gym 2:30. And at that point, they're there till 5. And that's not just like a straight working out, but they're usually hitting 2 to 3 pieces in that time, but it's just play. Like they just dream it up. Let's do it. Yesterday, we were hunting for pineapples in between workouts. It's very casual. But when you actually assess the amount of work that got done, it almost makes me uncomfortable, to be honest. So my role has been to try to help him understand bang for the buck, and was that necessary? Even though you thought it was fun, was that productive in the sense of, is that too much, or what is that doing for you? But I kind of just stay out of it because they're just playing, they're having fun. It's all driven on passion. It's all driven on personal ownership. And so if anybody could criticize me of something, it's being too distant from the process.
Yeah. You know what? It's just like, but when you put it like that, like you're letting kids have the freedom to play and experiment. It's just that rather than picking up a stone in the jungle, they're picking up a barbell and throwing it over their head.
Exactly.
Because I actually had no idea that I had thought that perhaps you were programming their workouts, or they were like, doing the 673 group affiliate program. Really interesting to hear that they're so intuitive or aware that they're actually able to program for themselves.
Yeah. Yep. And I think that's like been so key for us from the earliest days. I was like, you write it, you execute it. And so now they're really thoughtful about volume and different things. And so when I do give my advice, it's like, hey, let's work. It's almost always telling them to work static holds, or it's telling them to work some sort of tempo or pause work. It's always getting them to slow down, always.
It's no different from adults, to be honest.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'm curious, Mike, like, having seen, venturing into unknown territory, training kids in, this sport of CrossFit, which there aren't really that many other kids their age who are probably like getting them out of volume and exposure as they are. What are some of the biggest lessons that you've learned, maybe just as a coach in general, or specifically coaching kids and watching their journey?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's interesting because I do think that it's almost like a bit of a research project, not one that I've instigated at all, but just because of the type of kid that he is, the amount of workouts that he's done and that will have done by like age 14. If that doesn't have a negative effect on him, then no one's volume would. You know what I mean? Like yeah. he's an interesting case just because I haven't chose to stop him. And so I think that's one of the lessons that I believe is working and has created this good family dynamic, is that I've done environmental things. So the little things are absolutely key. The OSO barbells that are the 5-pound bars that have the right grip, proper padding, the rigs having the kids bar at the right height, the rings not being too tall, having proper matting, having the light kilo, the big plates that put the bar off the ground, but they're super light, like the 2.5 technique plates. Like all those little factors create an environment that's fun for kids to lift in. And I've noticed that if the rings are a little too high, they won't touch them. And if they're the right height, they end up knocking out 50 muscle ups on them. And it's just that little environmental factor, not anything from me, not any encouragement, not in, anything at all. But I think that's made one of the biggest differences, is just creating an environment that's kid friendly.
And have they picked up injuries or anything along the way?
We've had our first injury, and it was due to playing tag, not in the gym, slipping on wet tile. No, the closest Jaimon's been to being injured has been falling on his bike while like going over hills. And like I said, the closest Miah has been injured is playing tag and slipping on wet tile. Far more closer calls with bike riding than anything else, to be honest. But as far as the gym is concerned, no. And there, I'm very, very in tune to soreness, because although soreness for adults, we're kind of like, whatever, a lot of times pay attention to it, but no one's sounding the alarm, of course. But I am with them. And so if there's even a hint of soreness, I give a pretty strong admonition to change your behavior that caused that. But there very rarely is. And the big argument is that people can argue with us online, or the haters out there, is they think they're doing hidden damage, even though there is no soreness and even though there is no negative effect. They don't think it's like strengthening bone structure or strengthening cartilage or strengthening tendons, muscles, ligaments. They think it's just chronic inflammation that's happening now that's going to catch up with you later, which is kind of a funny approach, I guess, with zero biofeedback to support that. Also zero research. But I recognize the research is limited, because who the heck wants to test a 9-year-old kid? So I think he is a bit on the groundbreaking end of that. And again, do I know for certain that it's impossible that what he's doing couldn't cause a problem? I don't. I really don't. But it doesn't matter, because this is what he wants to do, and I'm going to let him make his choices and live his life. And I've just chosen freedom over trying to tell him how to live. And I know that's kind of crazy to say that about a 9-year-old, but he's so passionate and so focused. I think the alternative would be worse.
I mean, like, certainly his passion and focus, like, it's exuberated through everything you post, everything that he posts. Every time, like, I met him firstly at regionals, he came and he was like, he was James Newbury's biggest fanboy, and like had his hair done exactly the same as him. And like, he was working out nonstop that whole weekend.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just like, it's actually really infectious to see any human being, regardless of age, have that much passion for anything. And I think it's pretty cool to see you and your missus be so supportive of that. And it's obviously like, creating some pretty amazing things. I'd be really interested to just kind of watch his journey. And, you said, my last question on that is, you'd said that he knew from a young age what it is that he wanted to do, which was compete in CrossFit. Like, what is his goal? When I was a youngster, I wanted to be a professional footballer. Does he have that image? Is he like, I want to be at the CrossFit Games, I want to stand on the podium?
Yeah, he does. For sure, he has that goal. He just, right now, all he wants to do is compete. He just so badly wants to compete. He cannot understand why athletes, you know, who qualify for the games aren't doing every sanctional. Like it's beyond his, you know, child comprehension of like, why would Fraser skip that sanctional? Why wouldn't he go to this one and then to this? Why wouldn't he win them all? Like, I don't like, yes, so what? He's qualified for the games, but what's he doing? You know, like he can't comprehend that. So his ultimate dream is to win the CrossFit Games, have enough money to buy a sweet camper van, and drive around to every competition and compete and live out of an RV.
That's so good. Well, hey, I mean, I think the whole world's going to be pretty stoked to watch his journey. And if he keeps on this current trajectory, like, I'm sure he's going to be achieving some amazing things in life. I mean, all your kids, to be honest.
Yeah, it's exciting. I mean, we'll see. And I've been around some great athletes who haven't panned out. Like the thing I'm most excited about is I know that with the type of focus and passion that all of them are living with, like, if the CrossFit thing doesn't work out, they'll just transfer that passion to the next thing. And so I'm really confident, not in the fact that he's really good at CrossFit, but in the fact of the perseverance and focus. Like, that's a winning combination for whatever they choose. So yeah, I hope it works out for him. And I honestly, in my heart, believe it will, but if it doesn't, they're going to be all right.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, Mike, just wrapping this up now. What does the future hold for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have shifted my own competing for sure to helping Miah and Jaimon, specifically within the sport of weightlifting. So I could see my shift moving more in that direction as they become more passionate about weightlifting, which it seems like what's happening. They won national championships this summer in Anaheim, California, and that really kind of motivated them to want to go to the next level in weightlifting. So I've invested a lot in that. My daughter Kala is also doing that as well. And so I think that that'll be a focus of mine for sure. As far as the future of Brunei and 673 gyms here, I think I can definitely see a shift happening there of me wanting to kind of step out of the phase where I'm really involved in the day-to-day operations and kind of pull back there and really let the local leadership and staff take over, which has happened to a large degree anyway, and they've done a great job. And so I just see that continuing to happen. In terms of like next steps for us, we did buy a gym last summer in Ames, Iowa, and so I'm committed to definitely making sure that State 35 CrossFit in Ames, Iowa does well. And I'm never sitting still, and I'm definitely a vision guy. So I've got 5 or so ideas on the forefront. It's just a matter of which one to go after next.
Awesome. Well, Mike, I mean, there's so much more that I want to talk to you about. I want to talk about programming. I want to talk about events. I want to talk about competitions and the fact that you always program shit that I never win. So, I mean, there's so much more that we could talk about. But mate,
except the magical year,
except the year when you actually
workout,
when you actually knew how to program, and then it's like you just forgot everything you'd ever learned and made sure that Ed Haynes would finish bottom of the pile. But anyway, we'll say that for another episode. But Mike, where can people find out about you? Where can they learn more about what you're doing?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just living on Instagram these days, so which is something I honestly probably need to look at expanding a little bit. But yeah, Instagram is the easiest way to get a hold of me. If you shoot me a DM, I'm good with those. And then the accounts I manage are all my kids' accounts, which you can easily find through mine too. So Instagram's the mode at this point in time.
Awesome. Well, Mogard, it's been an absolute pleasure, buddy. This has been long overdue. And thanks for being a guest. We'll have to get you back on here soon.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, man.
Cheers, bro.